current emotes to use and the kind of things. And if you just, someone who picked it up, you use the green frog from last year, right? And that tells everyone that you're not really in that.
So since I have a whole bunch of presentations left, I figure I should just go ahead. So I wanted to mention a few things that we're going, that is going to be introduced in HTTP land going forward, or is coming. So I just wanted to sort of mention that. I mentioned the things before. So there's this updated cookie spec that has been. Well, it's in the queue. It's going to become a new RFC any day now. So it updates the RFC 6265. So it's going. It brings some subtle updates to cookies. We have adopted to them already. So I think the biggest change is that they now say that you should never allow a cookie to have more than 400 days of expiration time, which is sort of 400 days still. But now we enforce that limit too. Otherwise, there are some other details, but we already have them in curl since a while. And during this process, before the RFC has been minted, so there's no RFC yet for this, but now there's a new effort that I call here RFC 6265 bis because it's an so there's a new then, so that is supposed then to supersede this one that hasn't arrived yet. So there's going to be, I mean, 6265 came in 2011, I think. So it took 14 years to do the updates, and there's another update going. So I guess this just means that it's a never-ending thing to update the cookie spec. I try to be a little bit involved there. I object to things, and they override my opinions and go on anyway. But that's what I do. So I'm going to continue that. There's another proposal. I think it might go into this draft, the document, a proposal how to delete cookies. Basically, a separate header called delete cookies, on how a client then should be able to delete specific cookies from the server, because it's actually kind of complicated to do that right now. So I'm just highlighting. There's going to be more cookie changes going forward, and let's leave it at that. Fun, standard pattern there. And there's this new HTTP method called query that is also on its way. It's now in the working group last call in the HTTP group. So this is basically, from a client perspective, it's identical to post. It is a post, but it's called query. The difference is basically in some semantics here, that it's an idempotent, well, I don't know the name even how to pronounce it. Basically, you should be able to do this without actually affecting state on the server, right? So, for example, I think the typical example here is a search. You can do the search many times. It doesn't really change the state on the server. So send it again, and it's fine. That's not how posts work. You're not supposed to just do posts like that. And this has then a different caching properties as well. And so, but since we don't do caching and we don't do server, for our point of view, it's next to identical to doing a post. And possibly what is related for curl is also that when we follow location headers, right? It's a little bit of a what do you do in the follow-up request? You know, the $X issue. So that's why we have fitted a little bit with making sure that curl can behave differently when it follows regions. And that's the follow location mode. We have that in libcurl now, so you can ask it to behave more according to the spec, not as according to curl, what it has always done. And we have a work in progress PR for the command line tool to make it work differently. We're debating on the name a little bit, so we postponed the merge of that until 8:15 or so. So that I don't know exactly how this is going to be deployed or used in browsers or servers. I haven't seen anything. Do you know anything? So we'll see a little bit how it actually plays out in the big real world. I don't know. The third thing that is sort of pure HTTP related is the resumable uploads. Something that has been asked for and sort of been missing for through the decades, right? We have never had resumable uploads over HTTP, always just resumable downloads. And it has been done in numerous different ways, and I mean, at the same time we have had resumable uploads, just not in the standard way. Every major cloud thing has had their own ways to do resumable uploads, because that's what the clients want. And especially if you send a lot of data and it gets interrupted, it's super painful to have to restart every time. But now there's a standard way to do that, and it is proposed and it's going to become an RFC at some point. It seems to be, it has interest, and it seems to be deployed by some. There are tools doing this. I think the problem with this, or the challenge is perhaps that it's sort of a multi-request thing. So you need to save some state somehow, or contents of some headers. So it'll have to introduce something like save a state somehow, like saving cookies or saving HSCS, something so that you get the status and then do the resume. So, it's annoying because it adds another thing we have to store in a file somehow and use it. So I don't know, or in memory or whatever, because there's always this risk that you want to do a resumable upload, but the server doesn't support it, or it won't support it now. So there's a little bit of that. So there's no attempt yet to do anything of this in curl, but I'm quite sure that we will at some point, because people will want to use this. And it's fair, again, if you're uploading huge amounts of data to a server, you don't want to sort of restart it every time just because something happens.
Could they use the 100 continue mode to do this? Like, pause the upload for a moment, essentially? Wouldn't that not work?
Well, yes. They're using a 100 response code, yes. But basically, you want to say, hey, I want to upload this, and this says, and the server says, we have resumable upload supported, and then you start uploading, and when it gets interrupted, then you can say, I want to continue my previously interrupted upload, and the server says, sure, continue from this position, and then you do it. So you need an interaction with the server. And from my understanding, also fairly complicated to implement that in the server side. So it's also, it ends up in this fun situation, like with normal resumes when downloads, that the server might just not support it or refuse to support it. So it's a back and forth, fun times. So I don't know exactly where to go with this, but I'm sure we will have a look at it at some point. Someone will want to have it, and we'll have to give it a go.
This kind of modifies the flow of HTTP, right? Because normally you have like request and the reply.
Yeah, but it's the same thing here, but you just have to do the request and get a reply, and then do another request, because you basically get, I want to do a resumable upload, and then it says, oh yeah, do that over to that URL. Then you get a data back, and then you send the upload to that URL.
Okay, so that it's kind of similar to maybe options.
Yeah, and a little bit like authentication maybe. So you have to do something, you get something back, and then you act on that.
So you get the server basically gives you a unique new URL where you upload stuff, and we'll keep that around for some time. That's something to configure on the server, and then you can go back and say, it's like, I want to continue uploading, and it will then append it to this URL.
Right.
And then you say, I'm done, and then this URL will be like, you uploaded it to the original. So that's what the complications with the server.
Yeah, because it's a sort of a weird state. Now this is sort of a resource in progress to get completed by the client over time, and the client can then send little pieces to that upload resource over time, and at some point it's complete or not complete. So So the server has to have potentially then many clients doing that.
Yeah.
Many sort of incomplete uploads in
Yeah.
some state over time and then drop them when they're too
So
slow.
it's something that people can DOS then?
Right.
Right. Start new uploads.
Start new uploads all the time. The server
Exactly.
will keep them around for so many minutes, and it will just.
So it's more, distributed download versus resumable, distributed uploads versus.
No, but
It's
from
not
a
the same
from a
client.
from a client perspective, it's just resumable uploads. You just I want to do an upload, and it says sure, do it over here, and we upload
Right.
there.
But is it tied to the client that made the original request?
It
Due
doesn't
to-
matter.
Due to the unique URL.
Right.
But you need- I mean,
So
you-
you're getting back. is
You're
some-
getting back a resource to upload to, but of course you can pass on that to
However, the
another
server
one.
wants to do that. Yeah.
Right.
But it's still HTTP, right? So sure, you can connect from another place and continue the upload as well if you want to.
And usually the server, like the typical server software, doesn't do any uploads. It's like the server application, like in the PHP running in the background, right? That takes an upload and puts it in a database or whatever it is. So the server software, like the Apache or NGX, it really doesn't do uploads as such. It just
Yeah.
forwards this to the processing application.
Right.
So now it would have to, if you support it in a server, you would have to have some storage somewhere to keep it until it's complete, and then feed this completed stuff somehow.
And
to
then
the
hand it off to
application.
who's ever going to take care of it. So yes.
And if it's like 100 gigabytes, or how much do you want to support?
Yeah, but I agree that there's certain complications, but since there are already a lot of these cloud storage providers, they already have this in various ways.
Yeah.
So for them, it's more of a switch over to this method instead, and now we have a standard way to do it. And then they can switch their clients to do it this way, and then they sort of.
Yeah, the question.
Then they
would be-
are in the standards track,
Yeah.
and the rest of us could just follow along.
Yeah, the question would be just like, do you put support for this in like into PHP or other web frameworks?
Right.
Or do you expect it to be the generic server software, which is more complicated?
Right,
So-
yeah.
There's a lot of state handling in that, I'm not sure. how
Yeah,
much
so
access
I
you
think
can do that.
There is a lot
Generic-
of states and potential race conditions and everything, so yeah,
I don't think Apache is very keen on implementing that because it has lots of hairs.
fun times in server side. But that's why I said it's actually much easier client side, because we just have to start something, get something back, save that, and use that in our next attempt and blah blah.
But
blah.
if you have like an application like for example Instagram or another where you upload large photographs over a mobile network where you have more interruptions, it probably helps for you to have resumable uploads, makes it easier overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and of course, in all those cases, they have a private set situation anyway, so they have their own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone has their own already. So,
Yeah.
I think this is just a way to unify it. So maybe now not everyone has to give their own. They could actually use this way. It's fairly complicated, and I also think I don't remember exactly when I don't remember which version I left, but it's also wasn't clear to me exactly, for example, how you do multi-part form posts with this. Can you actually do that? Because it's sort of not clear exactly. I mean, that's how you do HTTP uploads mostly, right? But there are multiple fields. What does a resume mean here? So yes, I don't know exactly. And then you have boundaries, right, that are randomized in the middle. So wait a minute, do you resume? Yeah.
To be found out.
So I don't know. So I'm a little bit unsure how that is solved, if at all, or if you just have to do put or
Lucas will answer any question.
ask Lucas all questions. And then sort of struck me that I talked about this briefly, so I added this. So there's this interesting. This isn't really HTTP. This is more HTTP adjacent. They call it, nowadays it's called QMux. It started out as streams, quick over streams, or
Quick
Those
over-
things says that we are.
Quick over TCP.
yeah, it is. Another way would be to say quick over TCP, or quick framing multiplexing done over TCP, or multiplexing over reliable transport to also include like Unix sockets or whatever. Basically, it's a way to do the same kind of framing and multiplexing as a QUIC is doing over UDP, but over other transports like TCP.
So
Why would you do that?
So is it basically generalized HTTP2 or?
Yeah, it's like
So
do you mind?
yeah, so one of the early sort of explanations why you would want to do this is that we've come into a world now when we have, for example, we have HTTP2 and HTTP3, and both of them have extensions. So and now we have both in the world. So as soon as you do an HTTP2 extension, you want to do the HTTP3 extension because they both coexist. And you add the extensions slightly differently. So you basically have to do two different extensions at the same time. And they also people have these problems with H2 framing and some of the mechanics in there, and they prefer the QUIC and H3 ways to do it. And basically, the proposal was then, well, what if we just switch the world that we only have one way to do these frames? So just change sort of the transport. So by switching to just QUIC framing over everything, it'll be an easier world to do new things on.
Yeah, so there will be three.
Unifying exactly. So unifying by introducing a
And
third.
use that XKCD classic.
So the idea,
Exactly.
would the idea be like having HTTP 2.1?
But I
Yeah.
think these guys are primarily looking for other things than HTTP. So it's not actually an HTTP idea, but it's going to bleed over into HTTP anyway, so as everything will. So, but it's not an HTTP version or anything, and this is really early days.
Yeah. The other motivation is like, well, HTTP2 is from like 2015 was standardized, so
Yes.
it's made some room before. And there have been found weaknesses in how you can attack this protocol, in how it is designed. Like it gives the client, in certain aspects, it gives the client too much control, and the server has to invest resources to keep up there. And this is better, like for example, the MUX parallel streams.
Yeah, exactly.
So in HTTP2, it's like they started with very optimistic, like everyone should support at least 100 parallel streams requests. And in QUIC, it's like the server grants the client budget.
More
for
like
streams.
regular
So the server is
windowing.
in charge there in one
More
in a
regular
better way. Whereas
flowing.
in H2, a client could immediately start push 100 streams to the server, which would keep it busy, and then do this on another connection and on another connection. So that was one attack vector, to just exhaust resources on the server. So no one is really keen on continuing to work on HTTP2, and this is like the opportunity to restart that. So take the experience.
Yes, and sort of do, and then sort of do H2 or whatever you want to do over TCP, but do that with a new framing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are already, I think there are 3 implementations already done for that do QMux. That they call. So they started out with this name in the URL there, QUIC on streams, but I think there were a lot of complaints about using QUIC in this sort of context, because they don't want it to be called QUIC, because it's not QUIC anymore when it's done over a reliable transport. So it's not QUIC, it's just supposed to be the QUIC framing or the QUIC multiplexing, hence QMux. I'm not sure QMux is very good either, because if you Google it, it's got a completely different product called QMux already. So it's also, I don't think that name is good either.
No,
so, but I don't know. Naming is really the most difficult question here. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this because it's a fun and interesting.
No, it's interesting.
Discussion.
I mean, the other aspect is like you have eyeballing going on when you do QUIC. I mean, you're always prepared that UDP fails. That is blocked somewhere on the network. So you always do like in the TCP attempt in parallel or a little bit delayed. So if you build on an extension on H3 or QUIC, and your QUIC connection fails, and you don't have this extension on TCP, meh.
Yeah. So you basically, that's why you always do the extensions on both, because you want to have that fallback anyway. And then there's that there are different ways to do extensions, so it's difficult to do the extensions the same way. So they sort of, then they differentiate between the extensions for H2 and H3, even though you actually want them to do the exact same thing.
And then, of course, the case where it's not HTTP in the first
And
place,
also
it's
something as ridiculous as when you reserve an ID for the new frames, for example, they can't be the same on H2 as Quick, because I have different ways to allocate those and different sort of namespaces. So, yeah.
Someone mentions reinventing SCTP.
But it keeps being repeated, but it's a complete lie. If anyone who actually says this, actually read the SCTP spec, and there's like 12 reasons why this is not SCTP. I mean, Quick, you can argue that Quick itself is SCTP, sort of. But SCTP was actually done, I don't know, in the early 90s or something. It has so many silly assumptions that's not actually good for the internet. Like, a fixed number of streams, for example. And as Stefan just mentioned, not even H2 did it correctly. So the flexibility in streaming is key here, and it needs to be done correctly. And it wasn't really done correctly until Quick. So SCTP was actually considered really early on for Quick, and it was sort of there's this long document someone wrote, like why isn't SCTP good enough for SCTP done over DTLS was basically one of these proposals. But no, it doesn't really work. So those were the 4 fun things. So while I'm here, I'll hit the next one. I'll just stop and start so I have a different file.